Before we get to today's episode, let's talk about something so many writers I coach run into. You're in the middle of your first draft. You have more ideas and material than you know what to do with, and it's hard to get your arms around all of it. Maybe you're stalled, or you can't quite find the story inside the mess. Most of the time, there's a weak link in your story's foundation. I made a free resource called the Story Clarity Worksheet. This helps you find exactly where your story foundation is solid and where the gaps are, so you know exactly what's missing and what to do next. Go to nancypanuccio.com/clarity to download yours. nancypanuccio.com/clarity. Okay, on to today's episode. Every writer has moments in a draft where something clicks. A decision lands and you just know it's right. That certainty is your signal at full volume. When that happens, notice it, write it down, because that feeling is what you're chasing through the whole draft. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and book coach. Each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let's begin. Today, we're talking about something that is quietly derailing more writers than almost anything else, and that is noise. I don't mean just volume. I mean the craft books stacked on your nightstand, the writing podcasts in your earbuds while you're going for a walk, the feedback from your writing group, the blog posts that show up in your feed telling you the 7 things every great novel needs, quick shots of writing advice on Instagram, or any advice that contradicts the advice you got last week. All of it well-intentioned, a lot of it genuinely useful, and all of it, if you're not careful, drowning out the one voice that matters most when you're writing, yours. Here's what I see happen. A writer starts strong, the story is pulling them forward, and then they hit a rough patch, a scene that won't come together, a chapter that feels flat, a structural choice they're not sure about. So they go looking for answers outside themselves. They listen to another podcast. They order another book on Amazon. They bring their pages to their writing group. And instead of finding clarity, they find more noise, more opinions, more frameworks, more rules. And suddenly, they're not writing from their own instincts anymore. They're trying to write a story that satisfies everyone else's idea of what a good story looks like. So they stop, or they stall, or they start over. And the book never gets finished. So today we're going to talk about how to break that cycle, not by adding more to your writing practice, but by stripping it back, by learning to tune out the noise and tune into your own signal. First, the noise is louder than you think. Let's talk about what the noise actually is, because it's not always obvious. The noise is any outside voice that pulls you away from your own instincts about your story. And it comes from places you'd never expect. It comes from craft books, even good ones, because craft books are written about stories in general, not your story specifically. What works for a thriller doesn't necessarily work for a fantasy novel or a memoir. What works for a plot-driven novel doesn't necessarily work for a character-driven novel. When you apply general rules to your specific story without filtering them through your own judgment, you're letting someone else's signal override yours. It comes from writing groups, even supportive ones, because every reader in that room is responding to your pages through the lens of their own taste, their own reading history, their own idea of what a good story is. That feedback can be valuable, but it can also send you chasing 10 different versions of your story at once, none of which is actually yours. It comes from podcasts. Yes, including mine. I'll say that plainly. Everything I teach is meant to sharpen your instincts, not replace them. The moment you start writing to satisfy what you think I would say about your pages or what anyone would say about your pages, you've lost the signal. And it comes from comparison, from reading a book you love and deciding your draft should look more like that, from following writers on social media who seem to have it all figured out and wondering why your process is still so messy. All of that is noise. And the writers who never finish their books are almost always writers who have been listening to too much of it. So, what exactly is your signal? And how do you find it when it's buried under all that noise? How do you tune into it? Your signal is your instinctive response to your own story. It's quieter than the noise, but it's more reliable, and it's been trying to get your attention the whole time. Here are 4 specific things I want you to start paying attention to. Number 1, the scenes that come easily. When a scene flows, when the words come without struggle and the characters feel alive and you lose track of time, that's your signal telling you something. That scene is connecting to something true in your story. Pay attention to what those scenes have in common. That's where your story lives. Every writer has moments in a draft where something clicks. A decision lands and you just know it's right. That certainty is your signal at full volume. When that happens, notice it. Write it down, because that feeling is what you're chasing through the whole draft. Number 2, the scenes that feel like you're pushing a boulder. When a scene is a constant struggle, when nothing you write feels right, and you keep deleting and starting over, that's also your signal. It's telling you something is off. Not necessarily that the scene is wrong or that you need to cut it, but that something about your understanding of it is incomplete. Instead of pushing harder, stop and ask, what does my character actually want in this moment? The answer is usually simpler than you think. Number 3, the feeling that something is missing. When you read back your pages and something feels thin or hollow, even if you can't name exactly what, trust that feeling. That's your instinct telling you the scene isn't connected to what your story is really about yet. Don't override it with craft rules or another book. Sit with it and ask, what's not here that should be? And number 4, your gut response to feedback. When someone gives you feedback on your pages, notice your first instinctive response before your brain starts negotiating, before your brain starts defending. If your first response is relief or excitement, the feedback is probably connecting to something real in your draft. If your first response is resistance, that's worth paying attention to too. Not every resistant response means the feedback is wrong, but it's information about where your instincts are pulling you. Now, you may get 11 pieces of feedback, but only 2 or 3 might be spot on for you. So be selective. Don't try to take everyone's input and try to apply it to your draft. Listen to your instincts. Okay, so you know what to tune into. Number 1, scenes that come easily. Number 2, scenes that feel like you're pushing a boulder. Number 3, the feeling that something is missing. And number 4, your gut response to feedback. So now let's talk about how to actually quiet the noise long enough to hear it. Number 1, create before you consume. Before you sit down to write, stop consuming other people's stories and opinions about writing, not forever, just for the hour before you write. No podcasts, no craft books, no social media, no political news. Deal? Give your own signal a chance to be the loudest thing in the room. If you're in an active draft, try writing your pages before you read anything else in the morning, before email, before other books. Your story deserves the first quiet hours of your day before the world fills your head with other voices. Number 2, create a signal journal. Keep a separate notebook just for your instincts about your story. Not plot notes, not research, just your gut responses. What felt right today? What felt off? What surprised you? What were you afraid to write? What do you keep avoiding? This journal becomes a record of your instinct, your signal that you can return to when the noise gets loud. And number 3, filter feedback through one question. When you get feedback from your writing group or a reader, run it through this question before you act on it. Does this feedback help me tell my story more clearly, or does it push me toward a different story? If it's pushing you toward a different story, you can ignore that feedback. Just thank them for their feedback and set it aside. Okay, here's the reframe. The not finishing problem is not a discipline problem. It's a signal problem. You've been listening to so many outside voices that your own signal has gotten hard to hear. And without that signal, every choice feels uncertain. Going back to the beginning feels safer than moving forward into territory you can't quite see yet. But your signal is there. It has been the whole time. In the scenes that flow and the scenes that don't. In the moments of certainty and the nagging feeling that something is missing. It's in your gut response to feedback. In the story that keeps calling you back, no matter how many times you've walked away from it. That's not noise. That's your instinct. The writers who finish their books aren't the ones who found the perfect system or followed the right rules. They're the ones who learned to trust their own signal enough to keep writing toward it, even when the noise got loud. You can too. Now, this doesn't mean you never open a craft book or listen to a podcast. It means before you do, you ask yourself one question. Can I apply this to my story right now at this stage? If the answer is no, set it down. There's a point where more input stops helping and starts interfering. When that happens, the answer isn't outside you, it's in your draft. Right toward it. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform. And if you're listening on Apple, please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.